No, this should be fine. I just. Okay. Just let me know when to start. Hello, everyone. My name is Miriam Gallardo. I will be your host for this evening. So welcome to Harlem Speaks, the National Jazz Museum's longest-running series, where we dive deep into the lives and careers of the world's most captivating jazz legends and rising artists. This public program, is made possible by generous funds from Humanities New York. Today, I am thrilled to introduce a true rising star in the jazz world, Ekep Nkwelle. At just 25, this Cameroonian-American vocalist has already performed on some of the world's most prestigious stages. From Lincoln Center to Kennedy Center, with a voice that transcends genres and cultures and collaborations with legends like Wynton Marsalis and Dee Dee Bridgewater, Ekep is blazing a trail that's as unique as it is inspiring. Get ready for an insightful, soulful conversation as we uncover the artistry, inspirations, and journey of this incredible talent. Let's welcome the brilliant Ekep Nkwelle. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me in this space. This was actually one of the very first venues that I performed at in New York with my own band. So it's like a full circle moment to be back here and talking about my story.
Oh, this is amazing. And just to piggyback on what you just said, you did give me a little nugget here. You are a Harlem resident now, right?
Yes, I am for 3 years now.
Oh, look at that.
Yes.
So we're going to start off because we definitely want to get to know a lot about you.
Yeah.
So we'll see what we can get done, right?
Yeah.
So within your journey from Washington, D.C. to New York, especially in the jazz scene, how did your experience at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts and Howard University shape your musical career, your industry?
That's a really good question. Basically, I would even want to jump back a little bit further and say that I began singing in church. So when I was about 5 years old, my mom noticed that I could sing, and a few of my teachers noticed it, and so she put me in the church. My mom is Presbyterian, or was Presbyterian, and my father was Catholic. Those are the two main denominations in Cameroon, which is where my family originates from. And so when they rededicated their lives to Christ, they joined a non-denominational church, but it was more Pentecostal, if we're being honest. And so they put me in the choir there, and while I was at that church, I then attended Duke Ellington School of the Arts. So I was getting a chance to grow and understand music from an academic space, but also growing and understanding music from a worship and praise point of view. And I believe the two they just married each other and just, I made me into this person that I am today. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And going back, you said your parents noticed that you had this incredible gift at the age of 5, and you started singing in the church choir. Yeah. At that was around the same time. You were 5 when you joined the choir, or like was it a little bit after?
Yeah.
Oh.
So when I was 5, actually, it was like a school performance that was happening. This is all my mom's words.
Okay.
And so there was a school performance that was going on, and my mom and dad, they both worked 9 to 5s. My mom has been teaching at Howard University since the early 90s, and my dad, I don't exactly remember what he was doing, but I know he was in accounting. So they both had 9 to 5s, and they had missed the school performance. And when the tapes, because at that time we were still, using tapes, the VCRs. And so when that came around at the end of the school year, my mom purchased it and she watched the tape and she saw that I could sing. And so a few years later, when I was around 9 years old, that's when we joined this Pentecostal / non-denominational church that was actually pastored by a great family friend of ours, the Peffolks. Pastor Daniel Peffolk was his name, the lead pastor. And so I was in the choir, and I was just singing. It was more like a praise team, I would say, because a choir, you're thinking of, like a few members, quite a few members actually, but a praise team, you're thinking of a handful of members. Right. That's maybe like, it could be one in each voice part, so maybe 4 people, or 2 on each voice part. But when you're thinking of a choir, you're thinking of like 3 people, 3, 4, 5 people on each voice part, so it's a lot. And so actually, when I turned 13, around 12 or 13, I then began to lead the praise team. So I was fairly young when all these things were happening, but I was still performing in controlled stages. It wasn't until I got to high school that I'm now performing for people I have no clue who they are, for people I don't know. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. And then in high school, you got more of that experience academically.
Yeah. Yep.
And who were some of your favorite teachers throughout high school?
Man.
I guess music teachers.
Yeah. I would say I have to first and foremost think about Dr. Monique, formerly known as Spells, but she got married, and so it's now formerly known as Holmes, but now when she got married, it's Dr. Monique Spells. And she was my vocal instructor for my 4-year tenure at Duke Ellington School of the Arts in D.C. And yeah, she was hard on all of us. She was hard on me, especially. She probably would say she wasn't hard on me, especially. She'd say she was hard on all her students. But I always felt like she just had an affinity for me, towards me. And yeah, she took a liking to me, and she pushed me in that area. Classical voice was what all vocal students had to study. There was no jazz program. Contrary to the name of the school, the namesake, Duke Ellington, there was no jazz program for the vocal students at Duke Ellington. And so Dr. Monique Holmes, she was my instructor, teaching me classical voice. So I was classically trained for 4 years. I don't know if it shows up too much in the singing I do today, but it has taught me how to control my voice, how to prepare my voice for performance, and also just, technical things, technique. I would also think about, he retired now, but Davy Yarborough, I believe he's only retired from DCPS, but he still does so much work in the DC jazz community, music community. He has inspired and touched so many of the students that have come out of Duke Ellington and just the DC jazz scene in general. I'm thinking of like Ben Williams, Mark Carey, who else? Has probably Eric Wheeler too. Just like so many people went to Duke Ellington, man, and so Davy Yarborough, he taught most of us, and I had the honor to be able to work with him, which was not something that was supposed to happen, because again, he taught jazz, but vocalists weren't supposed to be taking jazz classes, being in the jazz ensembles, being in the jazz programs. But I made sure that I tested out of all my piano theory and all of my music theory and ear training, so that I would have availability in my schedule to learn from him. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I know it, and then pushing a little bit forward into college.
Yeah.
You also.
Yeah, there were.
Put in a lot of work.
There was so much work. Oh my goodness! I thought high school was a lot of work, but Howard University, man, that's a school that I think it's just when people hear it, they sit up straight.
Right. I'm sitting up straight.
Exactly.
Right?
People hear
I'm
it.
like, oh, you said Howard.
Just the prestige that Howard University is known for in all concentrations, in all fields, but specifically in the music field. The chair of our department was Kanatra Miller, and she taught me so much. I thought Dr. Holmes was hard on me. Miss Miller was so hard on me, but she specifically told me that it was because she saw something in me. She told me from the first day that there was something that she saw in me. And the recommendation that she would give me to go to the Juilliard School, she would then like write it out so that I could see. And man, I cried when I read it. But yeah, Kanatra Miller, she was my teacher for the 4 years there, as well as Jessica Boykin Settles, who is married to Brian Settles, who is an educator as well, and a saxophonist that's well known in the DC area and just all around the East Coast and probably the country at large, as well as Christy Dashiell. She's a very well-known jazz vocalist who I was studying her music and transcribing some of her solos while I was in high school.
Oh, you transcribed.
I was transcribing her solos, yeah. And I had no clue. I knew kind of who she was when I was transcribing her solos, but it wasn't until my freshman year where she was subbing for my private instructor that I would then lay eyes on her, and then she became my full-time private instructor my senior year at Howard University.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And then in between all of the education that you have been receiving, what were some of the classes as a music student that you're just like, do I have to take this class? Because I know you're still fairly young, but so inspirational already and have accomplished so much.
Thank you.
What are like some of the courses that you're just like, wow, I didn't really understood until I'm placed there that I really do have to take this? Because I know there's so many younger artists that I'm sure look up to you, and just like kind of a guide. Like, what were some of those courses that you were taking?
Yeah, there's actually something very specific about my degree. It was music business.
Okay.
So not only was I taking all the music classes, because my concentration was jazz voice, but I was also taking business electives. And so I think 2 business courses that really stood out to me was accounting and marketing, because I'm constantly just on the business side. I mean, the performance and recording and music making and songwriting, unfortunately, I would have to say that's about maybe 40, more realistically 30% of what we do. And the other 60 to 70% is the business end of it, is the logistics, is signing all the contracts, is doing all those things, is accounting, is marketing yourself, because not everybody is so lucky to just have a team while they're young. That's a building process that might take a few to many years to be able to kind of stabilize yourself in. So taking accounting and taking marketing, that I'm able to see parallels between what I learned then and what I'm applying now, as well as, of course, all music students know you take ear training, you take arranging, you take music history, where not often are you being taught Black music history, but you're being taught European music history. And you're just learning about music from before even your grandparents are born. You're learning about really how music all began. And so, I would say those were the courses that still are impacting me, that I'm still being able to see resurface in my life today.
And still apply.
Right. As hard as they were during the time.
Now you're like, okay, I'm glad
Exactly.
But that's awesome.
Thank
you.
It's
so important now, the way times have changed, what we have access to, what we didn't have access to, that now we do have access to, especially now being a woman too.
Yes.
In the jazz realm.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have such a great lineup of educators behind you.
Thank you.
What attracted you to jazz that made you say, okay, I'm gonna be a jazz singer? This is, especially like you going from praise and worship at a young age, and even that has a wide range in its vocals and training and arranging in chords that you hear in the music in itself, and just the soulfulness as well. But what was it that was like, no, that's it, like that attracted you to that?
I love that question. That's one that's often asked, but I never get tired of answering. So my father, he used to listen to a lot of music, and typically in Cameroon, we don't really listen to straight ahead jazz. So there's not much Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Art Blakey. You're not listening really to straight ahead jazz. You're listening more to smooth jazz, or kind of like styles that derive from or were inspired by jazz. So something like Nigerian high life, which uses a lot of like horns, trumpets, trombones, saxophones, and you're using, you're creating these chords and all of that, and you're taking from this style of music, jazz, and you're using these African rhythms, these traditional African rhythms, but it's not jazz. So that's what I was listening to, but I had an affinity towards these sounds. And then when I was in high school, so this was my sophomore year, I was in the show choir. And the show choir in Duke Ellington was, outstanding during the time when I was there and the years that preceded that, because we really focused on gospel. Most show choirs, you're thinking of show tunes, but we focused on the songbook of Duke Ellington. We're focusing on gospel music. We're focusing on Motown. Black music was what we were focusing on. And so I was in the show choir, and I transitioned from the B group to the A group, and I was having the time of my life. And the one day that upended everything was in April. Every year, Duke Ellington does a celebration for Duke Ellington's birthday. And the jazz orchestra, they do a performance, and typically it would feature the show choir. I'm not sure if that still happens, but we were prepared. We were going to go up. I don't remember what song we were going to sing. So we're sitting in the back of the auditorium, and we're waiting for our time to go backstage to do our performance. And the band is on stage, and they're playing Sophisticated Lady, I believe. And as I'm like sitting back and listening to them, my whole world turns upside down. And I can't even describe how I felt. But I remember I was sitting next to my friend Miriam on this side and my friend Robert Alston on that side. And I said to both of them, I said, I'm going to be on that stage. That's what I want to do. Wow. And they were like, oh, here she goes. She always wants to be different. She always wants to do something different. Because, to them, it's like we're gospel singers, we're R&B singers, we're soul singers. They're thinking, I want to be different because I want to sing jazz. Nobody's singing jazz at our age. And so they're like, oh, yeah, she thinks she want to be different. And lo and behold, when the school semester ends, that summer we're taking photos with the show choir just for the next year and everything. And during the photo shoot, I get enough courage to walk up to the director and say, I quit. And the director was actually Dr. Monique Holmes. Oh. I said, I can't do this anymore. I want to join the jazz orchestra. I know that they don't have a vocalist, but I want to, join some of the summer programs during the summer and come back and try out for the jazz orchestra and see if they'll let me in. And she was like, okay. There was nothing she could say. And from that point on, that summer, I did everything I said I was going to do. I enrolled in the jazz summer programs that Davy Yarborough was in charge of, and him seeing my zeal to just study and my hunger to want to know more. When I came in the fall semester, I was enrolled in the orchestra. I was enrolled in a group called the Mellow Tones. I was enrolled in Intro to Jazz Voice, and I was enrolled into the small ensemble. So 4 jazz courses instead of the 0 that vocalists were allowed to take, I was taking 4, and so it was incredible.
So
That's how
you started a trend.
yeah, kind of, I would say.
And it's very interesting, just hearing your story.
Yeah.
Just because, again, like you said, you're young, jazz. Like, why you want to do something so different?
Yeah.
If you know what's popular is R&B.
Yeah.
It's even classical.
Yeah.
You hear more classical than you hear jazz.
Yes. Yeah.
And the fact that you had a slight exposure to the sound of music while you were in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having that access. And also the access of your culture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
picking that up, having both, the roots in both Cameroon and American cultures.
Yeah.
How do you blend these influences in your music?
Man, so I would say that that was a struggle for a while, because anybody that has like that dual identity, anybody that is a second generation of a country overseas and first generation on American soil, it's hard. When you go back home, you're too American. In America, it's like, when I step into your house, your mother and your father aren't eating American food typically. Most of the time, the mother would be cooking traditional foods. So my mom is making fufu and soup. My mom is making jollof rice with chicken or something like that. She's making these foods. Sometimes she's making mac and cheese because, her kids are American. So you're having this dual identity. And when you step outside into school, all you want to do is just be like all the other kids. So it was very, very hard growing up. But when I became an adult, I knew that there was a decision that needed to be made. And the decision I made was not either or, but both. Like, it is very possible for me to exist as both African and American. And then the question was, okay, now that I'm secure with that in my daily life, how do I become secure with that in my music? And that was even harder than I could have ever imagined. That's, to be transparent, a question and a journey I'm still on, and I don't think I will ever reach the destination. I think it's something that is a path to continue to be forged. I don't think that there's, an end to the tunnel. I think I'm not looking for a light at the end of it. I'm the light that's forging through the tunnel. And so, Abby Lincoln and Max Roach, they are two. I would more so hone in on Abby Lincoln, because to speak of my love for Max Roach, it's always tethered to Abby Lincoln. So since she's the underlying factor, I would just have to say, seeing how Abby Lincoln, in her quest to merge her affinity towards Africanness, and finding, when you think of the song All Africa, finding where we all meet, the center of this music, the center of our identity in the African diaspora, it's Africa. And so seeing how she was able to take an American music such as jazz and meet it with African rhythms and African ideologies and just African truths, to me, that was the essence of what I was striving for. I believe that my music, it's more, and it's going further. It's not Abby's story, but I believe that Abby's story is a part of what makes my story. Seeing her and her power and her confidence, and even how she started off her journey singing standards and looking one way, and then ending her life being, this incredible, unique, poised, quirky, confident person that was just, a vision to look at and to listen to. I think that's a part of my journey, but it is not my journey. And so, I would say that it's still something that I'm working on, but Abby Lincoln is a part of it. She's a part of it.
And it's good that you have, again, like, just having a powerful Black woman in general, again, in jazz, and having someone that you can look up to, but then also people can look up to you, especially in this generation. Going as far as like being that Abby has been an inspiration.
Yeah.
You had quite a few of collaborations yourself.
Yeah.
With some very important people. I know you had like jazz veterans like Cyrus Chestnut.
Yep.
Two young stars like Emmet Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been, well, let me go back. How have you adapted your style
Yeah.
in comparison to these two artists that I just mentioned, and I'm sure a lot more,
Yeah.
To fit such diverse collaborations?
That's a good one. I would say that there was really no adaptation that needed to happen because as we've been speaking, I've been talking about gospel, R&B, soul, jazz. I've been talking even like West African traditional music. I've been talking about all these things. And so there's a part that all of these styles play inside of, you know, the different collaborations that I have and everything. And so when, like, for instance, when I was recently doing the gala, singing with Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, I was listening to so many versions of the one song that I had to sing, which was The Best Is Yet to Come. And I listened to Jean Deshawn, I listened to Sarah Vaughan, I listened to Ella Fitzgerald, I listened to Nancy Wilson. I'm listening to all these styles, all these different kinds of singers, and I'm pulling different things from each of them and their different styles. Ernestine Anderson too, like thinking of these singers who had like more of a soulful edge, and then those who were more in the traditional swing, and then those who were thinking more melodically and all these things. I'm listening to them, and then I put that aside, and I'm like, okay, where does Ekep come into play? Because same thing with Abby Lincoln, all these different singers, they play a part in my journey, and they play a part in who I am. But there's also more to me than just that. And I believe it's like the gospel and the soul and the West African indigenous music. These are the extra things that I'm taking along with me that I have in my backpack, that when it comes time to collaborate with Emmet Cohen and Endea Owens and Cyrus Chestnut and Wynton Marsalis, I'm taking all of these things and I'm applying it to whatever song they give for me. I left my heart in San Francisco, Mood Indigo, like whatever song you give to me, there is me in it. It's not, Sarah Vaughan. It's not, Abby Lincoln. It's Ekep Nkwelle. It's all the things.
And I love that.
Thank you. Yeah.
And again, your name already just resonates. Ekep Nkwelle, like, come on now.
Thank you. Thank you.
You also you performed in major venues like Radio City Music Hall, the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
Is there any venues that you've performed in that hold like some type of significance for you?
Yeah. I would definitely say, when I think of significance, I'm thinking of home, but the most significant performances haven't necessarily been, because I still am young, I'm 25, so I haven't really performed so much at the Kennedy Center, but I've performed, a few times at the Kennedy Center on the Millennium stage, on the main stage, so when I think about it, I performed everywhere in the Kennedy Center. I just lied. I performed everywhere in the Kennedy Center, but I would say the most satisfying and life-changing performances have been more of recent. Recently, I did two festivals, Northampton, a jazz festival in Northampton, Massachusetts, and
that
then
was recent.
That was recent.
That was this year, or?
Yeah, that was either August or September.
And what was the name of the festival?
Northampton Jazz Festival, and while I was there, I performed at a church. So again, that's a full circle moment. I'm in a place that represents my upbringing, that represents my stomping ground, where I started, and what is really my foundation. When, people say I started in the church, it's like there's always the question, okay, are you still there? Like, or is it a thing that kind of shaped your sound? But for me, church it's who I am.
It's part of you.
This is a part of me. My faith is a part of me. And so performing in that church in Northampton, that was, man, when I tell you they came out, the line was like wrapped around the building, and there were people that were still standing outside. But I say that to say there was this hunger to hear music, to hear jazz, to see live performance, and it showed itself in the reactions. After every song, during each song, hands were raised, tears. I mean, the smiles on people's faces, the eyes were closed, and that is what I do it for the experience. And so for me, it's not about the name or the prestige of the venue or the festival. It's about the audience connection. That is exactly why I do it. You can put me in a little shed. You can put me at a revival. You can put me at the most unknown jazz festival, the most unknown venue. What is the hunger? Mm-hmm. Is the audience ready to receive? Do they want to receive? That's what I do it for.
No, yeah. And I love that too, because again, the significance is tied as like, why do you sing? Like, why did you choose this career?
Yeah.
And being that you are so young, I know sometimes the questions are like, you kind of like tapped into that. Mm-hmm. Like, some people are like, I would love to perform here. Mm-hmm. Maybe it does tie into a significance. Let's just put it in that aspect.
Exactly, yeah.
Is there a place that, because you're still young.
Yes,
you have a whole beautiful life ahead.
Yeah.
In providing and sharing the love for jazz, and you're also educating, because I feel like, again, when you are young, you're giving access to so many different generations, from the older generation of incredible legends to young kids who have not even heard or know what jazz is, and it's part of jazz is the American culture, and you know, to hopefully one day see it more on an educational standpoint, within stages and learning. It's so important. Is there a place that you are like, oh, I can't wait, like that's like a what would that place be? Or
it'd be Newport. It'd be Newport. Newport Jazz Festival. Fingers crossed. Hopefully next year. If not, the year after that. Like I think I never feel like I deserve to be anywhere. I'm always humbled by every opportunity, and there's always that excitement. And so, Newport is definitely one. I love festivals, I would say, because people come to festivals because they're excited to see music. They're excited to see new artists, because with a festival, typically, there's some where you buy a pass on a certain day to see a specific group of people, but some people, they're buying 3-day passes, some people 2-day passes, like all different kinds of festival variations. But one thing that you can rest assured is that there will be multiple acts. And so you can't control who you see. It's like there's going to be some lesser known acts. There's going to be some well-known acts. And so I would say Newport does a great job with their programming, in my opinion. And I would just love to be a part of that legacy. And so many of my friends, perform there. And so I would love to be there. But I did have the opportunity to go with Endea Owens. I remember she texted me last year we went. She texted me randomly, and she was like, "Kep, have you done Newport?" I said, "No." She said, "Okay, you're coming." I was like, "What?" And so I sang with her and Endea Owens and the cookout, and it was a life-changing experience. I saw Emmanuel Wilkins there with my hometown friend, Kwaku Sumbri was on drums. Who else did I see there? Big Frida was there. Anderson .Paak was there when we were sound checking. I mean, there were just so many people that were there. Russell Hall, who plays in my band, we met up with him and his wife were there. There were just, so many. The list goes on and on and on. There were too many people. Yeah.
and it's crazy. It's such a small but big world to be in. And we're going to go back into like your education as well.
Yeah.
You spoke about Duke Ellington. We spoke about Howard.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Juilliard.
Oof. That's going to be an interesting one. Ooh, let me stop. This is in the archives, so somebody's going to see it.
So, how was that moment when you found out, like, okay, I'm going to Juilliard?
Yeah.
Because that's such a big thing, especially being, myself being a New Yorker, but in general, so many people know about Juilliard.
Yes.
Did you have, like, expectations of, like, okay, like, once I'm going to get in, or my goal is to get in, and that's the only choice I have, like, how was that experience for you?
So, to speak of Juilliard, we'd have to speak about that the fact that the vocal program is very new. When I was admitted in 2021, I was the third group of accepted students. Each year there were only two. So I was a part of the fifth and sixth inductees into the vocal jazz program, as well as being one of two of the first black women to be admitted into the vocal program, and one of the first two black women that were admitted into the jazz program at all. So we have to speak about all these things when we're talking about
This was in 2021.
2021, and she won't say it, but Endea Owens was the first black woman to be admitted into the jazz program at Juilliard. And so I think she got into Juilliard, please forgive me, Endea, if I'm wrong. Was it 2015? I feel like it was 2015, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
When she got her master's there. But I'm sure she'll talk about it tomorrow when she does, her interview. And so I wanted to go to Juilliard, or just really go to school in New York, since I was in high school and I started jazz. And Wynton Marsalis being one of the foremost living jazz legends, I was like, Wynton Marsalis, he is the director of Juilliard, so let me see if I can get into the program. There's no vocal program. And I used to play saxophone, when I was younger, but to get, my undergraduate degree in tenor saxophone, I just was not there. So there was no way that I was going to get into Juilliard. And so I go to Howard University, which was the best choice that I could have ever made. And while I'm there, my sophomore year, I am going back to teach at the summer program that got me into jazz, that was led by Davy Yarbrough, the Washington Jazz Arts Institute. And so I'm teaching the vocalists there. There were maybe 4 vocalists, and Wynton Marsalis and Isaiah Thompson, they were the guest presenters for the concert that happens every summer. They bring in a guest. And so Wynton Marsalis, accompanied by Isaiah Thompson, they were the guests that summer. And after the performance, backstage, I walk right on up to Wynton Marsalis, and I'm like, why is there no, I didn't say it that rude, but I'm wondering why there's no jazz vocal program at Juilliard, and when will one be created? And he said to me very specifically, the fact that you asked a question like that means that you are most likely somebody that we're looking for at that program. And that stuck with me. And he let me know that they're in the process of building a program. And I was like, okay, when I graduate from Howard, I'm going to apply. And he said, okay, I'll see you there. And fast forward to my senior year at Howard, I apply for, I think, about 6 or 7 schools. I also do some creative fiction writing. So I applied for some schools to do creative writing. And then I applied to 2 music schools, Berkeley, to be in their global jazz initiative. And then I applied for Juilliard. Juilliard was my mom's choice. Berkeley was my choice, because I don't know, I had so many friends that went to Berkeley and I heard great things. But my mom, she always said to me, if you ever are going to pursue this music thing as a career, you're going to do it the right way. You're going to be in the best schools. You're going to be in the best programs. You're going to be the best, because she just doesn't play like that. And so she made me apply to Juilliard. And I applied to Juilliard. I kind of wanted to, but it wasn't my first choice. And I kept getting, decline after decline from school after school, and I was beginning to lose hope. And the very last school that I was waiting on was Juilliard. I had been waitlisted by Berkeley. And I'm, sitting in the kitchen, and my mom is in the living room, and I get an email notification, and it's from Juilliard. And I'm like, Mom, I just, got a notification from Juilliard. And she's like, well, open it, because she has so much faith. And I tap on the email, and fireworks, confetti and fireworks come out of the congratulations. And my heart, like when something shocks you, everything is a blur. So I'm reading the congratulations, but it's not settling in until I get to the end. And I scream, and I'm like, I got into Juilliard. And my mom is screaming, and she's praying, and she's praising God. And I remember I was like, oh no. I had been thinking about, all the things I had ever read about Juilliard and what that comes with, and the prestige and the rigor of the program. And I'm like, oh no, this dream of my mom's for me to be the best, to get the best education, this is what that looks like. This is like a school that kind of brings together all that I've ever learned. And it's kind of forcing me to sit with it and be amongst those in the country who are the best of the best. And yeah, that was what it was like, receiving that notification and learning that I was going to go to Juilliard. There was a sense of fear, but going to an HBCU was the best decision, as I said, that I could have ever made. And it strengthened me, and it gave me confidence as a Black person, as a woman. It gave me so much confidence that when I went into the doors of a PWI, a predominantly white institution, I was secure and I was unfazed. There was so much foolishness that went on amongst the students, I would say. And so many Black students were trying to discover their identities and where they fit in the world, especially the undergraduate students who they don't just go to school there, they live there. They eat there, they do their laundry there, they're taking their calls there, they rest there. And so that is their home, a predominantly white institution. I get to go back home. But it was the strength that I brought with me from an HBCU, from a predominantly Black area, PG County, Washington, D.C., from the schools I went to, that I just walked in there and it was like, I knew who I was. Like, I was like, look, bye, y'all. So, yeah, my experience, to say the least, was great.
And being that you went to Juilliard and you pretty set some records there, like,
thank you.
The fact that 2020, when you asked Winston that question about why is there no jazz program at Juilliard, what year was that?
Man, so I got to Howard in 2017, so that had to be either 2018 or 2019. It was
around that time frame, which is it seems kind of crazy to think about, just because so many great, even within musicians, but to not have like a jazz program, still fairly recent, especially here in New York, that you asked the right question and it opened up an opportunity beyond your belief. And you did some incredible things at Juilliard.
Thank you.
And that brings me to Tiny Desk.
Yeah.
You got to be with some of your fellow
classmates,
Juilliard classmates, and Tiny Desk is, even though it's so tiny, is very impactful. And the fact that you were there. How was that experience like for you? And is there something that from that experience that you carry till this day?
Yeah, I would say I loved being there because it's in Washington, D.C. It was home. Yeah. So it was like while we were in the hotel there, I was kind of telling everybody, what to order, where to get food from and everything like that. But yeah, just walking into this space that I had seen so many of the mainstream and even more like niche artists perform at. I think even to this day, when people say tiny desk, I'm just like, oh, yeah, I did do that. I don't think it has actually settled in that I was in that space.
You were in it.
Yeah, there's some videos to document it. It was surreal. It was absolutely surreal. And doing selection and arrangement by none other than Jerry Allen, who went to my alma mater, Howard University. There was just so much DC culture that I was able to bring into that space. And so, yeah, I would say just being surrounded by great young musicians who are my counterparts, to be able to bring my vision of the arrangement to life, being able to support me, it just meant a lot. And there was actually a lady who attended the concert who had seen me perform somewhere else. So I was just like, man, like it feels like I'm at home. So
No. And
yeah.
in the, because I did watch,
Yeah.
I loved your arrangement of Jerry Allen's
Timeless Portraits and Dreams. Yep.
You did phenomenal.
Thank you.
How was that approach like? Because sometimes, like, even as a young artist and like you're arranging something that's like, come on.
Yeah.
You know, like, how was that process like for you?
Yeah, so I would say I have about 3 arrangements of that song. I actually first sang it at Howard University my freshman year. Jerry Allen passed away that same year that I came to Howard University in 2017. But the year before, in 2016, she worked with the students of the vocal jazz ensemble Afro Blue, which I was a part of. And Timeless Portraits and Dreams was one of the songs that she gave to our director, Kanatra Miller. Though I don't believe they sang the song on the concert they did with her, it was one that she gave to Miss Miller, and one that Miss Miller specifically gave to me. And she said, "This is your song, this is your solo. I want you to sing it. I believe you'll be able to bring out the spirit that Jerry intended for it." Because the only vocalists that have sang it that I have seen are Liz Wright, and of course, on the record, Carmen Lundy. She does it so beautifully. And so when I got to Juilliard and we were tasked with, bringing some arrangements for the tiny desk, I said, well, I'm going to be in D.C., so let me do some Jerry Allen. And I was like, I want a song that is going to leave a footprint, because the tiny desk is going to be there forever. So I was like, okay, let me do Timeless Portraits and Dreams, because I love the message, I love the words, and I love the composer. And we had not only a rhythm section of piano, bass, and drums, but we also had horns. I believe it was saxophone, Kobe Petricone-Berg on saxophone, alto sax, and on trombone, Jocelyn Perales was on trombone. And I was like, okay, I have to feature them. It can't just be, rhythm section and voice. Like, I'm not going to kick them off the stage for my one song. And so I used the arranging and the ear training and all of the things.
That you had applied from all that education.
Exactly. I used that to create my arrangement for horns and voice. And there were several parts where I stayed true to the way that Jerry Allen had originally composed it at the beginning. And then there were parts where I added rhythm, which Jerry Allen did not use rhythm. She didn't have, I believe, a drummer on the record. Typically, there's not a drummer that's performing it. But I believe when Liz Wright performed it, Terry Lynn Carrington was playing drums. But yeah, my arrangement featured drums. And then it also had sections where me and the horn players, we were kind of like doing, what is it called? Like a chorus together. So we had 3 parts, like a church harmony situation going on. And so I just kind of melted together my love for stories and my love for messages, beautiful messages, with my love for church harmonies and choruses.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And because I know this is part of our oral history, your Tiny Desk performance was what year?
Oof. What year was that? 2022? Yes, 2022.
2021 was when you already entered Juilliard.
Yep.
So already within your second year of Juilliard, you were able to go into Tiny Desk with your classmates.
Yeah.
It's an awesome story to share for
you.
all of you guys.
Thank you.
Because Tiny Desk is just constantly, they bring in such an eclectic group of just globally, like the impact of music and seeing that jazz is being in some way, shape, or form preserved
Yeah.
in a digital way,
Yeah.
where people
Yeah.
can view it. Another thing that I wanted to ask, you worked with the incredible Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Yes.
How was in the Woodshed Network?
Yeah.
You know how that experience was. I know you did a residency.
Mm-hmm.
How did that go about?
Oof.
Or like how all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
Yeah, so one of my homegirls, Sequoia Snyder, she plays piano, and she plays piano for me sometimes. She had been working with Dee Dee Bridgewater for a couple years. I mean, we're the same age, so that's already incredible. But that came about when she did the first year of the Woodshed Network, which had alumna such as herself. Who else was there? Darren Deed, who's from LA. Kennedy of the Kennedy administration, just so many young performers, so many fabulous women, musicians, composers, all of the things. And so Sequoia had mentioned to me a few times, like, oh, you should do the residency, you should do the residency. Because we met Dee Dee Bridgewater in high school, actually.
And to kind of like stop you off there, it's
Yeah.
an all-women's
Yes.
residency.
Yes,
so
it
just
is.
to be clear on record.
Only women, no men's, only women. And it's such a safe space for us to grow in a very gender-specific environment, to tackle very gender-specific concerns, experiences, encouragements, like all different kinds of things that are very specific to women exclusively. And yeah, there's no other word to sum it up than a safe space. It is safe for you to grow, for you to understand and say, I don't understand. For you,
okay.
yeah, I mean, my goodness, yeah. And so we actually met Dee Dee Bridgewater in high school at Duke Ellington. We did a performance for International Jazz Day in D.C., and I remember, oh my goodness, Miss Bridgewater, she probably doesn't, I call her Mama Dee Dee, so it felt weird saying Miss Bridgewater, but Mama Dee Dee probably doesn't remember, but I said to her, she asked me, oh, do you want to do It Don't Mean a Thing with me? And can you believe I said no?
Why?
I said no because I was so scared to get on the same stage as her. I was like, no, I'm going to sound so bad. And I don't remember her response, but I know it wasn't pleasant. She was just like, are you sure? Like, come on now. Like, we can get on stage. It's like, I'm not going to bite. I don't bite. And I was just like, no, I'm okay. And she was like, okay. She wasn't going to ask a third time. And so she probably doesn't remember for good reason. I'm so glad she wiped that out of her memory. But to this day, that actually has taught me to never say no to that kind of opportunity. And I never will, and I never have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask
Yeah.
that because I'm like, it's Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Yes. And so fast forward to the Woodshed Network, I apply and I get in, which it's not a small thing because there are women who apply multiple times. So it's not an easy thing to get into that residency at all. And so it was a 2-week residency, and we pretty much met all day. I would say from 11 a.m. to like 6 p.m. It's all day with, some breaks in between. And we talk about music, but we're mainly focusing on the business side of music. And so many schools try to do the music business thing. They try and jam it into a 1 or 2 semester class, and it always falls short. I have yet to attend, a music business course that really gave me the information I needed. But when I was in the Woodshed Network, I got all the information I needed to make the right decision about my manager, to make the right decision about my booking agent, to make the right decision about labels, to make the right decisions about a lawyer, contracts, demo, album, all the things that I'm doing now touring, though it directly was affected by the things that I learned and the people that I met and was mentored by in Dee Dee Bridgewater and Talani Bridgewater Kowalski's The Woodshed Network. So to any young woman who stumbles upon this interview, that is absolutely the years that it does happen, because it's not every year that they do it, but the year that it does happen, I implore you.
How frequent does that residency happen? Because I know there's some residencies that do go on the yearly basis, and some might be, twice within the year, once within the year. How often does that residency go by?
It was pretty irregular because it started pre-pandemic,
Right.
I believe, and then I think it was the year right before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, everything was online. So even the year I was there, it was on Zoom. And so I know right now they're on a brief hiatus because it also is supported by funding as well. Right. And so it's pretty irregular for now, but there is a website. And so there's always a way to just check in and see the status of when they're going to be reinstalling it.
Yeah, and it's a great way for young artists as well, younger artists.
Yes.
To give themselves an opportunity to look out at different residencies that are out there, whether if it's for jazz and focusing maybe on music writing or just more vocal training and being in a environment where you can escape and still find freedom. Yeah. Which I feel like that's something that your voice does. It brings out. It's home for you, so you can, as an audience member, you can see that, and it brings me to your style. Your style combines tradition and more of a modern way of approach. Yeah. How do you maintain the balance in your music?
Because I love to swing. But I also love me a good West African six. And so I would say, I find the balance in programming a good set. I'm still learning how to do that. A performer who I believe does an incredible job of creating a good set is Diane Reeves. Diane Reeves knows how to tell a story with her set. She knows how to have a good set. She knows how to keep the audience engaged. It's not just about the music you perform. It's even about your speaking in between the sets that helps to weave everything together. Two songs that might not make sense, just perform back to back. With your insertion of spoken word and what you say, how you interact with the audience, it can help create a thread that when the next song comes in, the audience is like, oof, man. And so I'm still learning how to do that, but I believe that's how I maintain balance. And the only way that I can continue to do that is by continuing to listen to new music. I have to force myself constantly listen to new music. And I'm not just talking about what has been released currently, but listen to even that of old that you have not heard before, to constantly refresh my repertoire. Because the music you listen to it because it's good. And so that's what I want to listen to every day. But that is how I expand my set, and that's how I continue to even swap out songs that when I learn a new thing, it's like, oh, that song would actually go much better in this part of the set than the original song I was doing was. And it makes the set even more tighter, even more cohesive. And so I would say programming a good set that has the heart of swing, that has the foundation of the blues. And Mary Lou Williams did an incredible job of just illustrating the blues tree that she did, that just talked about how the roots of this thing that we do, the roots of this Black American music is the blues. The foundation of it is the blues. And so having that as the foundation of which everything else is coming out of, and programming my set in that way, keeping everything tethered to the blues, is the way that I program a good set, is the way that I keep balance. So yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
There's so much, and I'm going back just to get more of that information for your Juilliard career, going back into Juilliard. You got a career grant, winning an advancement grant.
Yeah.
I know that must have been a very proud moment, like you said before. What has that recognition meant for you,
Yeah.
both personally and professionally?
So it was a shock to me. I was not told that I was nominated for the grant, nor was I even the day that I found out news of the grant. I was not told anything. It was supposed to be a complete surprise. We were supposed to be, not anonymously, but anonymously to us, nominated. And I then found out I was nominated by Wynton Marsalis, as well as, yeah, full circle moment, yes, as well as the assistant director, Dr. Aaron Flagg. And so I was nominated by both of them and other parties within the department. And so when I found out, I was shocked. Tears rolled down my eyes. And of course, many, many thanks to the Mark Center, many, many thanks to the donors who gave me and I believe 13 other 13 in total graduating students, undergrad, graduate, and PhD alike. We were given this career advancement grant. And so that's, hundreds and thousands of dollars that was poured into the university to be given to young professionals. And it just meant that I could go in the studio and record. It meant that I could pay musicians. It meant that I could pay rent. It just meant that so many things financially were taken care of. Last year and even this year, things have just been taken care of. And that is a huge blessing. And so I'm consistently and probably forever will be grateful because people come out of school, come out of university, and financially it's a leap that you're taking to step into adulting, to step into adulthood, and especially as a musician without a job, it's like, man, oh my goodness. And when I say job, I mean like a 9 to 5, more quote unquote traditional job in STEM, working for the government or what have you, all these things. I didn't have that. And so I step out into the workforce, into the performance, into the music business, and I'm stepping out on a leap of faith, but being able to have this cushion of this grant, and it's changed my life.
Yeah. Well, nowadays everything is it's hard even because one, like you said, it's not your traditional 9 to 5.
Yes.
But it's also a competitive field.
Yes.
And it's also a field where now you see, I could be wrong, but for me, visibly, I'm starting to see more of the younger generations tapping into the genre of jazz and infusing jazz and its American history.
Yes.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face that people might not know that you've pretty much kind of like tackled as an artist?
Okay, yeah, as an artist. I think one of the biggest things is just figuring out your voice as an artist, especially your writing voice, your writing style. I have a few original compositions. Not so many of them have I performed live, but I performed quite a few live. And just kind of figuring out which ones of them really encapsulate where I am right now. Because you might write something, but it might not be for right now. You might write a composition and not perform it live, not record it for 10, 20 years. Recently, I maybe a few years ago, I saw the R&B soul singer, Ari Lennox. She posted on Instagram, it was maybe about like 60, 70 songs all on a whiteboard. And these were all songs to be considered for her album. But as we know, an album can only have but so many songs, unless you're Chris Brown and you want to release a 50-song album that nobody's going to listen to all those 50 songs. But she really proved to me that this music thing that we're doing, it's not so cut and dry as just you write, you release, you write, you release. Sometimes you write and the label might say, no, not right now. Or sometimes you might write and the label's like, no, period, for the tenure of your time on our label. Sometimes you write something and you're like, this is a story that was documenting a certain point that I was at, that I'm no longer at, for better or for worse. And you put that song to rest indefinitely or just for a time. So it's not, we're not supposed to be these sweatshop workers, this machine, this robotic machine that just produces things. It's as nuanced as life is, this music thing. And so, yeah, I would have to say writing, timing, these are the things that I am struggling with most, that people see me performing and they're just thinking like, oh, everything's all good with her. But I'm like, every day I'm wondering, what am I doing?
And it's not just singing, it's like behind the scenes
Yeah.
of being an artist and as a jazz singer. You're trying, like you shared earlier, you transcribe, which not many people do.
Yeah, yeah,
You're writing,
yeah.
you know, you're arranging, so
Yep.
you're really diving deep
Yes.
in your craft and your
Thank you.
artistry, and that's amazing to just see from someone who's just 25 years old.
Yeah.
For that being said, what do you consider the most underrated aspect of being a jazz musician today?
That's a good question. Most underrated aspect of being a jazz musician. I would say the breadth of styles that we're able to tap into. You can really tap into anything. It's about what is it rooted and grounded in. Is it rooted, is it grounded in the tradition of the blues? If no, then don't call it jazz. I'm so sorry. But if yes, the sky is truly the limit. The blues doesn't sound one way. Oh my goodness. So many people feel like the blues is this one particular sound, and when you hear it, you'll know that, okay, you think that that's all the blues is. But when I hear Emmanuel Wilkins play, I don't hear him using that same one lick or those same I don't hear him doing all those kinds of things. But he's in the tradition of the blues. When I hear Cecile McLaurin-Salvant sing, she's in the tradition of the blues. And they're doing so many different kinds of styles of music, but it's all within this one tradition. And so I would say the breadth of music, of repertoire, of styles that we're able to express and tap into, that is so underrated.
Yeah, and it's, again, jazz has that component where it taps into all these other genres that we listen to today.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing here is when you're not performing or recording, what is something you love doing to unwind?
Watching a good TV show or movie. I would say in another time or place, I would love to be like a film critic, not, one of the more prestigious ones, but just one of the bloggers, maybe on like Roger Ebert or Rotten Tomatoes, just one of those who, is freelance, is able to, do that for their career, watch movies, watch series, and be able to talk about them, being able to have private access to go and, see the first screening of a movie or something. I would love to do that. And so I'm always keeping up with some new show, with some new movie. It's very rare that you can ask me about something on Netflix and I can say I haven't seen it.
So I'm going to ask you one last question, and obviously I definitely want you to share like where others can like find information and also your next shows. But last question, if you can collaborate with any musician in jazz history, who would it be and why?
If I could collaborate with any musician in jazz, I would have to say Duke Ellington. Yeah, Duke Ellington is my favorite composer of all time. So I feel like there's some songs where I'm like, man, if the Duke had me on that song, I would have torn it up. All of his sacred songs, I've got nothing on Mahalia Jackson. I'm so sorry, but I would love to be able to be on one of those records, to be able to sing sacred music, and just, I love the way that he intertwined the music of the church, the text of the church, with complex harmony, with his forward thinking as a jazz composer, as a composer, period. And so I would have to say Duke Ellington, because, again, he is a great symbol of somebody who shows the breadth of styles of music that is still rooted in the blues tradition. So, Duke Ellington.
Yeah, thank you. And again, when is your next show? How can people view it or see it live? Any information that you would like to give out that the fans would like to know to keep up with all of the greatness that you're doing?
Yeah, so my next show would be in Vermont Jazz Center, November 2nd, Saturday, November 2nd. But my next show in New York City will actually be a part of a 3-week tour that I'm doing with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. And so for 5 nights in New York at the Rose Theater at Jazz at Lincoln Center, I'll be performing there with also featured with Robbie Lee, who is an incredible vocalist. And so we'll be singing Christmas songs, a part of a series that they do every December called Big Band Holidays. And for more information about me, about the work I'm doing, about my music, and about where you can see me next, you can find me on my website at Ekep, Ekep Nkwelle, NKWELLE.com.
And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Ekep Nkwelle.
Thank
you so much for all the information and just your story and your journey. And again, only 25, youthful, and she's doing it.
Thank you.
And it's amazing to see what the generation now is doing, and the future is bright.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey.